Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football MFSN. I'm Ross the Boss. I'm here with Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinfeld. Casey, say hello to
Hey,
Fantasy
everybody.
Football.
It's August. We're less than a month away from opening kickoff of football. How exciting is this?
We are in preseason, but I don't want to give too much information because you can watch this video all season and even next season if you feel like it. Maybe, you never know, but I want you to watch it this season before you draft because I'm going to give you guys different strategies. Casey will too. I just don't want to do the obvious. Everybody has the same obvious top 10, top 20. I'm sick of it. And you're not going to win your league if you just listen to the sheep, we call it. If you listen to the sheep, you're not going to win. You got to go against the grain sometimes, right, Casey?
Sometimes you do, yeah, especially in those larger online leagues where you're going against or daily fantasy. Certainly, you got to go against the grain sometimes. So, yeah, it's take bold chances, take risks. I mean, don't worry. I still think in the first round, you're looking for the people with the highest floors because you want to be safe with those picks. But once you get through those first 15 or 20 picks, 25 picks, you got to start going with a little bit of risk if you want to make a big difference.
Okay, Casey, we'll play it. We'll play it. This segment, we're going to do this. We'll play it like we're drafting, and we'll just give the cons and pros for each player, and we'll tell you why you should and why you shouldn't draft this player. First pick, everybody's taking McCaffrey. Casey, my thoughts is this: I'm worried about his health. He was not hurt last year. He was hurt the year before that, year before that. He gets hurt every year. You want a guy that is injury prone? I really don't, but I get why people like him. He was a touchdown every week last year. This guy was on fire fantasy wise, and I get why you want him. He gets balls, he catches balls, he runs balls, he's a machine. But Casey, I'm worried about his health. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very glad that in all of my drafts this year, I haven't had the first overall pick in redraft leagues because I don't think there's a riskier player in that first round right now than Christian McCaffrey, not because of talent and team. I mean, the 49ers put him in a position to succeed. You saw that, but he had over 450 touches last year. And you're right. He's getting close to that 28, 29 age season where you fall off the cliff already. He's had a long history of injuries, coming off 450 plus touches. I don't want him on my roster. If I had the first pick of the draft, I'd be pretty tempted to go somewhere else.
I like that style. Me too. The guy I'm taking second is somebody I might even take first is Tyreek Hill of Miami. I just feel Tua got a huge contract. He's happy.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's happy. His house isn't burning down. He's happy. He has a bunch of kids he has to feed. I get it. It's fine. But Tyreek Hill to me is the most dangerous receiver in the league. Every time I turn like a Dolphin game on, first quarter, he's catching the ball for a touchdown. I mean, 70, 80 yards. I mean, it's like every game. And I just feel Tyreek Hill is above all the other receivers, Casey. It's my estimation. I like having Waddle on the other side. You do a great Waddle impression. If you can do it for me, thank you. And Waddle is a weapon too, but not as much as Hill. But Hill to me is the number 2 pick. Everybody's worried. Who do I take? 2, 3, 4, 5? I'm taking Tyreek Hill as my second pick. Casey, what do you think?
Well, I like it. I mean, he led the league in yards and touchdowns at the receiver position last year. Now he missed a game or two because of health. He is going to be 29 or 30 this year. I can't fault you for that pick. I would lean CD Lamb only because I think he had 180 targets or 179 targets last year. All other Cowboys receivers combined had only 181 or 182. So we had almost 50% target share, and he's dynamite. Now I know he's holding out, and the concern is there, but we know Jerry Judy's gonna. I mean that Jerry Jones is gonna open up the bank and pay him what he needs because he needs him on the field. Because let's be honest, other than Jake Ferguson, who else do they have? They went completely bargain shopping at running back this year. I think Rico Dowdle, is that the number 1 on their depth chart?
It could be Elliott. It could be Elliott.
What? It could be Ezekiel Elliott, right? And so I don't see a lot of competition for. I think he's going to get the 180 to 185 targets again this coming season, and I don't want to pass that up.
I like CD2. I like CD2. You said it perfectly. I agree with you. I don't trust Dak Prescott. I'm not a fan of his. I feel that he has good days and bad days, and he never wins a playoff game. But it doesn't matter in fantasy football if he wins playoff games. I don't really care. But CD Lamb, yes, for sure top 5. Casey, next I'm going. You're gonna laugh at me, and I'm not picking a Bengal like you think I am. I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. How do you say Amon-Ra St.
Ahmad,
Ahmad St. Brown?
Amon, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra, the
Amon-Ra
sun
St.
god,
Brown.
Egyptian sun god.
Thank you for the clarification. I'm taking him early in the draft. Top 5 at least, Casey. I think Golf is going to be the MVP of the league, so that's where I'm putting him at. So don't laugh at me about that stat. I think St. Brown is going to lead the league in receiving, maybe even touchdowns. I think he's going to have a huge year if he can stay healthy. It's about health. But I love this kid, and I feel the Lions are going to be a force to be reckoned with in an NFC. But St. Brown is my pick to be, let's say, 4 or 5 around there. What do you think?
I don't have him that high. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is a complete. He reminds me a little bit of Steve Smith of the Carolina Panthers many years ago. A little undersized, but just an absolute bulldog and demands targets. I do think the ball has a long way to go around there with Montgomery, and I know Jahmyr Gibbs is hurt, but I think he's going to be fine.
He'll be fine.
Sam Laporta and Jamison Williams. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. I like Jared Goff. He's a great dome quarterback, and I think I saw that they have 14 games in a dome this year. So the chances of him having a great year, I think, are increased because that's why I like Amon-Ra. I have Tyreek Hill number 3 because I don't have him number 2.
That's fine.
And then I still have Justin Jefferson above Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
I know he was hurt last year, but he came back the last 5 games of the season. He was still a top 5 wide receiver, even though he had a smorgasbord of rerun quarterbacks thrown to him. He didn't have anybody of real value. I still think he's great. So I would have him up there, but Amon-Ra and Jamar Chase are right next to each other. We have a question from Chris Atwater. So Chris, you think Ayuk is going to Pittsburgh? Ross, if he does, how do you revalue him?
So first of all, I'm tired. For the past 6 weeks, I've been talking about Ayuk going to Pittsburgh. I'm sick of it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. You know what? Leave San Francisco. Bye. Stop using it. Stop talking about it and do it. But yes, if Ayuk goes to Pittsburgh and Fields plays quarterback, not Wilson, I think Ayuk will be a first-round top 30 pick for sure. Ayuk has the talent. He has the speed. Pittsburgh has a really stacked team this year. I like them, but I'm just tired of hearing about Ayuk going to Pittsburgh. I'm sick of it. If he goes to New England, he's dropped to like the 3rd round. So there you go. How about that? But I'm just sick of it. I don't even want to talk about Brandon Ayuk anymore. And I know he went to Arizona State. I get it, but I just sick of it, Casey.
Well, I see it a little differently. I don't like him going to Pittsburgh any more than I like him going to New England for this year. And that's only because Arthur Smith is the new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. And everybody knows what he did in Atlanta last year with Drake London and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts, or for the last several years with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. He doesn't throw the ball vertical at all. He doesn't have a complex throwing scheme now. And Justin Fields likes to run. So if it's not a great situation for Ayuk. He'd be the number 1. George Pickens is kind of your traditional, I guess he's the X receiver because he's that big outside target. But Ayuk, I mean, he can get open in a phone booth. He's one of the most electric wide receivers there are. I'd love to see him go to a more like a Washington Commanders or imagine him in Kansas City. But I don't like Pittsburgh that much for him. So it doesn't move the needle up for me at all. If he goes,
well, the reason they're saying Pittsburgh and New England is because they have the cap, and it's
sure.
All about,
no, I get it. I'm just saying I don't like the offense.
He wants the AJ Brown contract. He wants the big contract, and he deserves it. I mean, he deserves big money. I get it, but a lot of teams can't afford it. So I'm just tired of him talking about it. I'm tired about the press talking about it. I'm tired about people asking questions every time there's a press conference in San Francisco about it. It's just, do it, leave, bye, goodbye, close the door. But let's talk about drafting, Casey. I want to talk about Justin Jefferson. I have him in the top 10. Okay. Top 10. JJ McCarthy's having surgery today on his knee, meniscus problem.
Meniscus tear. Yeah.
I have no idea. There's no timetable. And then Sam Darnold is their starting quarterback, and he's going to get him the ball. He's going to make him an all-pro receiver with Sam Darnold as your quarterback. I don't think so. I really do. I
Look,
think his stock has dropped without Cousins there. And I'm right. And Jefferson's not going to have the year like he used to have last year with Cousins or the year before when Cousins before he got hurt. But
here's here
let me hear what you have to say.
I agree with you that his stock has dropped, but when you were number one, your stock can only go one direction if it's going to change at all. I do agree that he's not the number one wide receiver anymore. That's why I have CD and even Tyreek above him.
Okay.
Then I have Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Justin Jefferson all kind of as the next three. Look, Hawkinson is missing at least the first 4 to 6 games of the season.
Wait, is that official? Because they have not given him a timetable. They
haven't given him a timetable, but he tore his knee in
I know, but he's progressing very
December.
quickly. I know, but
I understand, but even 9 months recovery puts him the end of September. So that's 3 or 4 games easy, if not more. Who's the Addison? Is it
Addison, the USC guy that
is he getting in trouble for his DUI or whatever he had?
The court case is the end of September, and they might delay it to the end of the season.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's going to affect.
I just think nobody's competing for. There's plenty of targets to go around. If Darno drops back to pass, he's going to look to Jefferson first every time, and as long as he's within reason, he's going to put up decent numbers. I don't disagree with you that St. Brown and Chase can be as good, if not better, than him. But I still look. I believe in Justin Jefferson.
That's fine. No, I'm not saying I don't believe him. I'm saying he's not top 10. Yeah. Christopher Atwater has a question, but I wanted to talk about the first running back I would take off the board. Why don't you take the question first, and I'll
Who is the biggest question marks in the projected top 20? Well, I think we've talked about a couple of them. Christian McCaffrey, because of the injury risk, he had 450 plus touches last year. Was not healthy ever in Carolina, and I think he had some games missed his first year in San Francisco. So we're worried about that. We talked about Justin Jefferson, getting him the ball. How's that?
We'll talk about it. We're getting there, Chris. I don't want to give a bunch of names out and then go back to them. So don't. Let's watch the show. Idiot.
Okay.
Okay. So my first running back off the board, and running backs this season, Casey, I've done some drafts. They're sparse. I mean, there's not many running backs out there that I believe in that I'm like, oh, I got this guy, so I don't have to worry about the running back position. There's 3 or 4, and then that's a big drop. So Breece Hall for the Jets, for me, I feel he's the top running back at that position this year just because of his youth and everything else. I know there's other guys out there, and we'll talk about it, but what do you think about Hall? Do you think he's your number 1 running back, or are you thinking somebody else?
Well, after Christian McCaffrey, obviously, we talked about him. I think I like Bijan or above Breece Hall just because I like that off. Well, look, what do we say all the time about the Jets, right? You get somebody on the Jets and it's always tricky. Garrett Wilson is the same way, immensely talented. Now, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, maybe that helps him, but the Jets have always kind of let us down. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is in that top 5 running backs. He's in that same tier if he's healthy.
I have him in
the hamstring. But I also really, really like Jonathan Taylor. I think he could be huge, especially if Anthony Richardson stays healthy this year, which they're hoping to have. They have decent wide receivers. They have a decent O-line, and Jonathan Taylor is a beast. I actually have Breece Hall. I go Christian McCaffrey, then Bijan Robinson, and then I have Jonathan Taylor. Then I have Breece Hall.
That's fine. So again, as I started the show, I'm doing a little things against the grain because I just feel if you want to win your league, you just got to maybe pick a 1 or 2 guys above the rest that's going to have a breakout season. I think Breece Hall is that guy. Bijan Robinson, you mentioned, I like him too. Top 10 guy, Atlanta, new offensive system. Kirk Cousins is his quarterback. I think he'll have a good year too. And the other guy you mentioned, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's hurt, but he'll be fine when the season starts. This guy was a monster last year. I mean, Gibbs, I love. Top 20 pick for sure. Casey.
Oh yeah, he's top of the 2nd round, I think. Yeah, Uncle Ted pointed out a stat. Bijan Robinson, 4.6 yards per carry with 4 rushing touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor only 4.7 yards with 7 touchdowns. Gibbs had 5.3 yards per carry and 10 touchdowns.
But remember,
that's absolutely true. But Bijan was playing in a terrible offense.
Yeah, you put 9 guys in the box against Atlanta. You want them to throw the ball. I mean,
You knew
you're
Arthur
begging
Smith.
them.
It might as well be Arthur Miller and Death of a Salesman
Might as
there
well have
running the
maybe
offense.
about Dr. Dan Ratner as quarterback. They had no quarterback situation. They were packing that up for them to throw the ball. They begged Atlanta to throw the ball last year, and they lost like 2 or 3 games because of it. But this year with Kirk Cousins, I feel it's going to be a whole different year. He's a very smart quarterback. He gets people the ball. And I think Robinson, I think he's used to the league now. I think he's going to have a big year, like you mentioned. I like him in the top 20 for sure. Maybe even he'll break the top 10 also, I think, Casey. Let me talk about Jonathan Taylor, which you brought up also. I like him. He's only 20. I mean, people think he's like 30. He's only 25 years old. I mean, I think he turns 25 this year. This guy plays on a high-strung offense. I love Richardson. I think he's going to be big if he can stay healthy. But I think Jonathan Taylor this year, Casey, I agree with you. I think he can have the year that he had. Was it 2 years ago when he led the league in rushing? I can't remember. Was it 2 or 3 years
3 years ago, I think.
3 years ago, he had a monster year. But I think you're right. I think Jonathan Taylor and the Colts are going to be a good team. They're going to win over 10 games, I believe. I mean, this team has a good defense, but all their offense, if everybody stays healthy, watch out. Pittman, all those guys, woo! It's going to be great. Can't wait. So let's talk about one of the biggest breakout players last year, which you and I barely talked about him, and now he's a top 20 pick. Pekka Nakua Puka for the Rams. I mean, this guy last year, Casey, he was like every game, touchdown, 100 yards, touchdown, 100 yards. And you and I were looking at each other like, I did not talk about him. I did not even mention his name during our draft shows.
No,
but this
he was
guy
like a 15th round draft pick, and people
dude,
who got him.
I could barely pronounce his name, and now he's a top 20 pick. Where do you have him going in your draft this year?
I think he's second round.
Second round. Wow.
Yeah, I think he's a second round pick.
Okay.
I have him right around wide receiver, I don't know, 8 or 9 in that range. In that same range as Chris Olave and Drake London, Devontae Adams, right in that range. And the difference is Matt Stafford can get him the ball. I don't know if Derek Carr can get Chris Olave the ball. We'll see what happens.
God, how does Derek Carr keep his job, Casey Scheinfeld? I mean, it's just amazing to me. He's still he's just so mediocre. I mean, he has big games, then he has like 4 bad games in a row. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And their backup is Rattler. I like that kid, the rookie. I like that Rattler.
Spencer Rattler, yeah.
I love Spencer Rattler. I hope he's their second string. I want him to see him play. Casey, let me talk about a very sensitive subject for you. I'll mention his name.
I know you.
It's probably a trigger. And he was.
I think I have him back there. I have him right there.
He's an ex-Giant, and I watched the whole thing happen on HBO. How he signed with the Eagles. Is your boy Barkley, Saquon? How I have him in the top 20. I mean, I'll just tell you that right now.
Yeah, if he stays healthy, this move is.
Well, that's anybody. But do you draft him in the top 20? Do you like Casey Scheinfeld, number 18 pick, takes Barkley, Eagles? I mean, is that something you will do, or you'll stay away?
Oh yeah. The only thing that scares me with him is the tush push, right? Like when they get to the 2 yard line, are they going to give Barkley the ball, or are they going to let Jalen Hurts do his little tush push thing?
Hurts.
Without Jason Kelce, maybe they'll go more to a traditional running back style, but I got to be honest. I love him. He can catch the ball. He's got a great offense there. He's got Devonta Smith and AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert as pass catching targets, which opens up a lot of the underneath play for him. Jalen Hurts isn't much for dumping the ball down, but I think they're going to design a way to get the ball.
It's a whole new offense. It's a whole new playbook, just so you know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hurts. They're opening.
But tendencies are tendencies.
They said it right. No. But it's Casey. I'm telling you, it's not the same offense. It's a whole new offense, and Hurts is learning it right now as we speak. It's not the Eagles' offense from last year. They're going way off the book. They're going to play like the Rams did when they won the Super Bowl. It's going to be a whole different thing. I mean, I'm just telling you, the Eagles' offense, you're going to be watching, and you'll be amazed. They're going to win 13, 14 games. This team's going to be for real this year. If they stay healthy, they're going to be good. and going to be better than almost any team in the NFC, even the Kansas City. It's a whole different team going on there. It's going to be dangerous, and I think Barkley's going to benefit from it. This guy's going, if he stays healthy, like you said, he could lead the league in receiving and rushing combined. I mean, he could be like a McCaffrey type guy. It's that good. I have a question. I'm not a big fan of this guy just because what you said before about the Jets, but I do like their running game. Is Garrett Wilson? People have him in the top 10. What do you have?
Well, talent-wise, I think I don't have him in the top 10. I think I have him right around 13. But, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, he's going to be a target monster again, because the only one competing for targets other than Breece Hall, which if he gets 50 to 60 catches out of the backfield, that would be amazing for Breece Hall, is Tyler Conklin, who is a late round flyer at tight end. I just don't see Mike Williams, who gets hurt every year for the Chargers, suddenly becoming a durable player for the Jets. Garrett Wilson could be the Devontae Adams of Aaron Rodgers' days in Green Bay. And so that's the reason I have him up there. Talent-wise, he's good enough. And it's just he hasn't had a quarterback.
Derrick Henry, KC, new team.
Love him.
Ravens. I agree with you. I think he's going to be revitalized in Baltimore. I think he can win the rushing title this year also. He's another guy, if he stays healthy, I think he'll have a huge year. And I think it's going to help Baltimore win that division. If it just depends on health. But what type is he a top 20 pick for you in fantasy football, or where do you have him going?
Top 20. That's tight. He's right around that 20 range. Okay. Yeah, I would probably third round pick for me, top of the third round, because again, as you know, if you remember last year, I predicted him falling off the cliff, I think, every week because Tennessee was such a bad offensive line and such a bad team. He's going to, John Harbaugh just churns out running backs and makes a running offense with Lamar Jackson do great. So I don't think he's going to fall off the cliff. I do worry about the amount of tread on those tires and the knocks he'll take, but I love him for, 1,000 to 1,200 yards and a boatload of touchdowns.
Now, I'm going to mention a name, and I have him in the top 25, top around there. I just don't know where you have him, but I think he's having a good year. But again, he hasn't played one snap in football yet in the NFL. Marvin Harrison Jr., not senior, Marvin Harrison Jr., Casey. What type of season do you project for him? Is he a legitimate first-round pick? What are your thoughts?
I don't know if he's first round, but I do have him as a second round pick. I love the kid. Now, rookie wide receivers, as you know, historically come out of the gate pretty slow. And so what I would love to do is let somebody else use high draft capital to get him, have him stumble for the first 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then try to buy him, because I think the second half of the season. But I do think he's a 1,000-yard plus receiver out of the gate. I like Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is a top 5 or 6 quarterback this year.
Wow, that's a good statement.
So as long as, again, I think we should just put a banner at the top of the screen that says "when healthy." I mean, running, he can do it all, and
it's a video game. Yeah,
right. His running is Lamar Jackson-esque. He can throw the ball. He made, he had really, really good years before his injury. And I see it again. There's not a lot of Trey McBride will get some injury, will get target share, but James Conner is not really a pass catching back. So it's Marvin Harrison is going to get a 40 to 45% target share, I would think. And if you get that almost on any offense, you're going to put up pretty darn good numbers. And this guy is good.
He's real good. Now, where do you take the quarterbacks are kind of not really first round picks, but sometimes if you want to get certain ones, they are. Where does Allen go from the Bills this year? I mean, he's been the number 1 pick at quarterback. Not by much though. I mean, it's a couple other guys that I like just as much, but I see Allen's stats. I know he led the league last year in fantasy points, but where do you have Allen going in the draft?
We're talking a single quarterback league, right?
Single quarterback traditionally.
Yeah. I have him going 3rd, 4th round, that range. I still think he's QB 1 or 2, just because he gets rushing touchdowns. Like Jalen Hurts' money is made on the tush push. Any ball inside the 3-yard line, Josh Allen's going to take a shot to get it in himself. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to have a pretty good year at tight end there up in Buffalo now that Stephon Diggs is gone. They took the slot receiver from Washington. I'm blanking on his name right now. Keon Coleman could have a good second half. I think he's going to have to find his footing in the NFL. But Curtis Samuel, I like Curtis Samuel.
Curtis Samuel. They also lost Gabe Davis too, which is a
Gabe Davis went to Jacksonville.
Went to Jacksonville. Yeah. I mean, they lost a lot of their receivers. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't know if Allen's my number one guy anymore, just because of the loss in receivers they've had, and they didn't really sign a number one running with a wide receiver that I know of.
No, now
but I don't know. There's a couple that
look. I'm not going to draft him.
We'll talk quarterbacks on a different show. I just brought it up because
I'm not going to draft him because I like some of the position players around there better. But
sometimes people make the mistake of picking a quarterback in the first round just because they don't know what they're doing, and I get it.
Yeah, I'd rather wait 2 or 3 rounds later and get a Kyle Murray or somebody like that.
I'd rather wait maybe to the 7th, 8th round and get Jonathan Goff. How about that?
Jared Goff. Jonathan's not very good.
Right. He's not. Casey, anybody else that I did not mention that you would consider in the first round? I thought I brought up everybody.
Well, I don't think you said AJ Brown is probably a first round consideration.
AJ Brown, I have him in there. I like AJ Brown. I think he's a top 10 pick. I didn't bring him up. Jamar Chase, you mentioned briefly. I think Jamar Chase could be a top 10 pick, of course, as long as Burrow stay healthy. But those two guys are absolutely yes.
You and I were talking about him at the end of last season as a first round pick, and we haven't even mentioned him, and that's Kyren Williams, the running back for the Rams. The guy was a beast last year, and we were talking about him as like RB2, RB3, but his season stats, he had.
They drafted the Michigan running back
Blake Corum. Yeah.
Blake Corum. I know they drafted him. I like Williams. I'm worried about his health, but again, I can't worry about it. I think Williams is definitely, if it's a 10-person league, I think it's definitely a second round pick. He's on the border I just feel there's better running backs out there.
Yeah, but isn't it funny how we were talking about him and now all of a sudden?
Well, he had Casey, last year.
He was insane.
Every time, we would talk about what happened this week, he would be the first thing we'd talk about. I mean, it was like in order. And I mean,
when we're talking, just to interrupt, Uncle Ted, when we're talking about first, we're doing standard 12 team. We're not talking 10 team.
10 or 12, either one doesn't matter.
But 12 team. And yes, we did talk about Tyreek. Ross said he's his wide receiver 1 and might even consider him with the top overall pick in the first few minutes of the show. I'm sorry if you missed that.
You can quote me on that too.
So outside of those guys, there's nobody else I don't think who could sneak into that first round discussion.
I don't think so either. I just wanted today's show to be easy, and we'll talk each position coming up. I mean,
we're going to talk tight ends and quarterbacks on Thursday.
Tight ends, quarterbacks, receivers. We'll talk about running. Yeah, with Thursday, of course. Tight ends this year, we didn't talk tight ends at all. They're not a first round pick, but I would say Laporta 1, Kelsey 2. If I was just a quick look at tight end position.
But that's fair.
Olave is not a top 3 round pick, Uncle Ted. He's not even
I think he is. I agree
I have my opinion.
But I don't.
St. Brown, I said yes, top 5 pick. Uncle Ted, I love St. Brown. I like him better than Jefferson and Chase. How about that? I
don't think unless you get lucky and Olave. Well, I guess it would be St. Brown in the first round. If Olave fell to you in the second round, depending on where you picked.
I still want to pick up. Really, you want Olave? Did you see the season he last? Look at his stats, and you'll come back to me later.
And then Tank Dell you can get later in the draft. I like that.
Tank Dell's the 3rd receiver. I mean, Houston, talking about a team that stacked a receiver. You got Nico Collins, who I love. I love him this year. I think he's going to have a huge year, 1,200 yards, 9-10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Then you got this guy named Diggs from Buffalo they got.
See, and I don't think Diggs is going to be great.
Okay.
I said that. But the one I would argue, instead of taking in my stack Tank Dell, you can get Malik Neighbors around the same spot that you can get Tank Dell. And I think Malik Neighbors is going to be one of those volume wide receivers with the Giants. and their offensive line in the preseason. Now I understand it's the preseason, but their offensive line has looked a lot better. If they can provide a little protection for Daniel Jones, I think in a lot of ways, Malik Neighbors is a more explosive wide receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr.
Wow. I have to quote you on that.
Once he
Wow.
has the ball in his hands, he's more athletic and can make stuff happen. So I don't disagree with you that Tank Dell is great, but around the same spot, you might be able to get a Malik Neighbors, and that would be pretty impressive too.
I agree. We'll talk about receivers. Again, these are not top 10 picks we're talking about. Jim Neighbors is not a top 10 pick.
Not Jim Neighbors, no.
Not Cobra Pile. It's not what I'm talking about. Okay.
That nose is great.
But Malik, yes, LSU star. I agree with you. I think he's going to have a big year for the Giants. He's going to for sure lead the Giants receiving. I guarantee it. There's no one else there. I mean, you can have Dr. Dan Ratner as the other receiver, and they'll do a better job than the guy they have there right now. It doesn't matter. But yeah, Casey, so I just want to get that out of the way. We'll see everybody on Thursday at 1:00 Pacific, 4:00 Eastern. And we're going to have a live draft here on, was it Thursday, August 29th? Is that correct?
29th or 7th. I forget which day. Let me see.
That week, it's going on a Thursday at 4:00 Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're doing a live draft of
29th
football.
at 4 p.m. at 7 p.m. Eastern.
I was right. And that should be fun. You'll see me taking everybody I'm talking about. I'll be taking them. And Casey will be taking Ela De La Cruz. He'll be taking him, I'm sure.
Bust.
59 stolen bases, over 20 home runs. Yeah,
whatever.
He's a bust. But I'm Ross the Boss. That's Casey Vlad to the Bone Shinefold. We'll see everybody on Thursday. Thank you for
watching. See you in a couple days. Thank you.